for this opportunity. Okay. Okay, so hi, how you doing? Hope you're having an awesome time at Game Connection. Thank you for being here. I want to thank personally to all the awesome people at Game Connection for letting me share some of my humble experience as an indie developer, of sharing some tips with you about self-publishing, and possibly give you some insight, or if you are an aspiring indie developer looking to publish their first game and want to see how it's like to self-publish and what's ahead of you if you take that route. Hopefully this can clear some waters for you. So you can ask some questions on the chat of this session. I will be looking to the questions as I give the session, this talk. And if I can answer them right at the moment, I will. But then afterwards, we can have some time to do some QA if it's necessary. So let's dive right into the presentation. So this is the Smart Self-Publishing Guide to Kickstart Your Studio. My name is Fernando Cordoba. I will structure this session into 4 parts. The first is an introduction and a disclaimer about what this talk will be about, a little presentation about me and our studio. The second part is about the transition from being one indie developer to indie entrepreneur, what you have to keep in mind if you want to make this your business and your way of living. The third part is the noob self-publishing guide per se. It's all the tips and tricks I've learned on my experience. And the last part is what lies ahead after self-publishing, is your life after self-publishing. So a little bit about me. I am one of the founders of MeNic Games. It's a small indie studio based in Cordoba, Argentina. We focus on PC games. We don't really have too much experience on mobile game. We have a couple of mobile games, but really this talk and the whole core of this will be about self-publishing on PC. So take my word, especially on PC. I won't be talking about mobile, which is another world, another beast on its own. And we developed and published the game BalanCity on 2016, and we published it on Steam. And right now we're working on 3 projects, which are Space Routine, Fata Morgana, Cities Beyond Clouds, and Tinytopia. We expect to be releasing and launching these games on 2021, hopefully. I consider myself to be a generalist developer. I do mostly a lot of coding, a little bit of art. I'm not really good at art, but I can handle myself. I come from an early 2000s web design background, mostly Flash interactive websites. Back then, I used to work on simple Flash games for advertising campaigns. In that time, there was not big of an industry here in Cordoba. In Argentina, some studios were giving their first steps into the industry and publishing their first games. But here in Cordoba, it took a couple of years until, let's say, 2015, when we really got together as a community of developers, and we had studios publishing and launching their games on PC, mobile, and console. So we can say that we have a really young industry and an early industry on early stages right here. So I'm also vice director at the game development career at Colegio Universitario IES, which is a local college here in Cordoba. That's my other labor of love. That's something that I really enjoy doing. It lets me be really close with the future professionals in the industry and really close with the community and what's going on with the future of our industry. So A little disclaimer about what this session is going to be about. This is not a self-publishing versus publisher lecture. I strongly believe that these two systems, self-publishing and going with a develop, can coexist in the business logic of an indie studio. If you happen to be in touch with a publisher who is interested in your project and you are in good talks to reach an agreement, go for it. Don't waste that opportunity. Publishers exist for a reason, and they specialize on what they do. Apart from providing the funds for studios to develop and complete their projects, they are also specialists in everything which is distribution, publishing, QA, and everything. So no, don't waste that opportunity, really. But if you're in the developer with no credit or background whatsoever, and you're taking your first steps in the industry, and this is your first project, it can be really difficult to strike a deal of that sort with a publisher on your first journey. So this lecture will be a couple of words of advice on my own experience, what I've been through, being on that position, and how to deal with self-publishing and survive in the process. Self-publishing, I want to really point out that self-publishing doesn't mean just pushing the big green button on Steam and having the game out in the wild and nothing else. Self-publishing means that you yourself have to do all the work the publisher generally does. As I said, QA, localization, marketing, PR, media outreach, and the list goes on. So there's a lot of things that you are not going to be able to do by self-publishing. You're going to have to really scope down, like say localization. You have to do some local QA, close QA. You're not going to have the budget to do that. And marketing, of course, there's marketing really costs a lot of money, so you have to do everything by yourself. So it's two different worlds. So as I said, this won't be like a lecture that say self-publishing is better than going with a publisher, not at all. So many people will advise you against self-publishing, especially veterans in the industry, and they are right, because as I said, going to a publisher provides with a huge backup for you as a studio, and you can focus only on development on the game. But I like to think of self-publishing as you're jumping, as if you're jumping into the sea without legs, because you're missing something important in order to keep you afloat. But as you can see in this scene from Forrest Gump, you can see Lieutenant Dan there throwing himself into the sea. Obviously, he lost his legs on the Vietnam War, but he's able to keep afloat, and he is enjoying his swim on the sea. He's using his arms, which is what he's got, and he's making his peace with God. So it's possible. You have to understand what you've got and what you're missing, but if you use that correctly and smartly, you can do it. So that's my idea and my core thought process about self-publishing. You have to really make use of what you've got. So now going to the first part of the lecture, going from indie developer, from indie entrepreneur. I like to use this word entrepreneur because I'm in the, since turning myself from an indie developer, solo developer, to an indie studio, we have to get ourselves into the entrepreneur world and community here in Cordoba. So there's a lot of stuff about entrepreneurship that you have to take into account when you take your first steps into the industry, if you want to really make this your business. I would like to focus on the concept that when you decide to make this your main income, you're not going to be only a developer. You turn into a businessman, into an entrepreneur. You have to be strategic on your decisions that you're taking on what you are going to develop. About a specific time frame you have to develop and start commercializing that game. What will be your target audience? What channels are you going to use to distribute the game? how did other games similar to yours did in terms of sales, ratings, media coverage. It's not, as I said, just developing the game blindly, publish it, and see if someone buys it and plays it. You're going to be clueless at first. Don't worry about that. It's understandable, and it happens to everyone. Not know what to do, where to go. Just be open to any words of advice. Be sure to check the background of the people you are taking advice from. There's a lot of smokes and mirrors, but there's for every person who gives you advice and doesn't have the background and just is simply lying, there's a huge lot of other people, especially in this type of events, who can really guide you and provide you their input on what you can do on this early stage. I thought I saw myself that something that really worked for us and for me, especially in this early stage, is quick prototyping, doing really small prototypes, things that you do at game jams, for example. You can store them and have them as core ideas for mechanics, which can eventually turn into games. I like to say that you put these prototypes into the freezer, and you wait for their time to take them out and unfreeze them and put them into the oven. For example, two of our projects, BalanCity and Space Routine, they both come from early rough prototypes we did years earlier. There you can see one of the screenshots of the early prototype of BalanCity and the early prototype of Space Routine. Of course, they don't look like that for the finished product, but they provided the core idea for us to really say, well, this game is interesting. Let's keep developing and publish it. Of course, for each of these, we have like 10 other prototypes that are, as I say, in the freezer. So don't be afraid to pivot. Pivot is a term we use, you see a lot into entrepreneurship lingo. It means that you change your approach, you change your product, you change what you are, your core of your business. In this case, don't be afraid to switch from one game to another. Don't commit to a single project until you have proven that the game you're going to be developing and publishing and dedicating extra time is going to, it feels that it's going to work. Think about the projects in terms of its possibility to be completed. It can be feasible and commercialized. The longer you take to turn a project into money, the higher your chances are that the project is not going to be able to be completed, or you're not going to be able to maintain it, or your studio. So you have to act quick, and if you see that something's not working, turn quickly. You have to react fast. For example, before MeNic Games, we started a project that's named 𝐀𝐨 Games, where we offer customized games for parties and social events. Even though we had a good coverage in local media and local community, the project didn't turn out to be viable. So we shifted to focus to a more traditional approach of game development. This project was focused on the local market. And of course, there wasn't a lot of movement in the local market for us to be selling these games. Nobody wanted customized games for their events. They really didn't buy into that idea. So we switched quickly to a global market and traditional games. So we still have 𝐀𝐨 Games as a side job if a client pops up, but of course it's not our main source of income. We do it because we like it, and it's something that we are the only ones doing this. But one piece of advice at this early stage is the importance of having a safety net. It's a very controversial piece of advice. I tend to be on this side of the story. I advise for people being at this early stage to keep their day jobs. You must have the safety nets if things don't turn out as you expect. The ideal scenario is where your day job is related to the game industry. I have that privilege of being connected with the whole workday with the industry as a job, with my job as a teacher of game development. It may not be your case, but that's the ideal scenario. Nowadays, of course, my day job, my main job has become game development, and my teaching job is my secondary income. I'm not going to leave that job because I really enjoy it, but at first it was my day job as a teacher and my night job and secondary job as a game developer. I believe that the stress of having two jobs is significantly lower than the stress of having one job in which you are not certain that that job is going to provide you food and a roof, especially if you have other people in charge, if you have other mouths to feed. So please don't gamble your living into this. Um, it's something that you every time you go into a gambling site, it's not that I'm going to those sites or investment site, they said don't invest money and don't gamble money that you need for something else. I said that it's for gaming development, especially if you are willing to self-publish, it's a gamble. So please don't gamble your living into this. If you're lucky enough that you don't need a stable income to live, let's say that you have someone backing you economically, um, you have the possibility to go full-time as a game developer without having a stable income from that activity. Don't waste it at all. That's a privilege. There's a lot of people who are not able to do so. So please be grateful for that and make sure that the effort someone else is doing for you to be able to have a full-time development job without getting any income doesn't go to waste. Please don't. One thing is you having to have a bad time because your game's not selling. The other thing is someone else going through that. So now let's go to the self-publishing guide itself. And when you have your first prototype, you have to start validating with the community of players and developers, start posting daily updates of what you're doing. One thing that really worked for me is adding one feature each day and sharing a screenshot or a video or an animated GIF of that. That will provide you feedback on the core look and feel of the game. It will tell you if the game is attractive enough, the mechanics really catch attention. If it doesn't, if you don't get enough reception or good comments from that, you can still switch your approach, try with a different set of features. Yeah, I'm getting some questions, interesting questions there in the chat, so I will go through those at the end because it's interesting. So this is the ideal time to start testing the waters, start switching if something is not getting the attention you really think it will. We had a Facebook page of BalanCity back then, and we shared that and we measured how many views each thing's got. There are things like Screenshot Saturday on gaming communities. You can really make use of those hashtags also. So at this early stage, this type of validation is vital. Another way to validate your projects early on is by participating on events and awards. This year has been complicated on that matter. Game Connection has the Game Connection Awards, for example. There are other festivals like Indicate, the Indie Mega Booth, the Mix Big Festival. For example, in 2016, BalanCity was nominated for one of the awards at Big Festival. There we met and got the attention from another studio from Chile, which we partnered with to port the game to mobile. And the following year, we won the Best Mobile Game Award at Game Connection with that game. So having been nominated on one event opened up the opportunity for us to really have the mobile version of the game and win another award. So that's a change of events, so to speak. Some awards even give out cash prizes. For example, we got an award by Humble Bundle in 2019, which let us develop the game Space Routine and publish it as a Humble original. So these can be great opportunities to don't be shy to submit your games, especially if they are free. Some awards or events have an entry fee, but many of them are free. But still, an award itself is not a guarantee that the game is going to be commercially successful or it's going to fail. It's some sort of validation of the game's quality and appeal, But I've seen many games that that didn't do well, even though they won a couple of awards. You can measure your possible commercial success by setting up a Steam page. As soon as you have something that will resemble the final game, you can do a vertical slice in order to do a good trailer, some good screenshots, some good marketing materials for the Steam page. Back in the day of BalanCity, we had Steam Greenlight, which was a great boost for the project because we got an article by Kotaku just by posting the game on Greenlight, which was a huge surprise for me. It got us a lot of positive votes. Nowadays, you don't have a Steam Greenlight, you have Steam Direct, which you pay, and you have your Steam page up and running. But you have the Steam festivals. You can, every 3 or 4 months, Steam puts out a festival where developers can share their demo of their games, stream some gameplay, and promote the game in different ways. This is a great way to get wishlist on the for your game. Wishlist is the number you're looking for at this stage. You want to really have a lot of people interested and saying, I really want to buy this game when it comes out. It's not that they're going to buy it. Wishlist conversion is not as big. It's like 18%, 18.5%, I think, the normal wishlist percent. For BalanCity, we have 54%, which is a big percent of wishlist. It means that the game is going to be in the database of that user, and when the game's launched, they're going to get an email, or when the game enters a sale, they're going to get an email. So it's a great way to have some free marketing for your game. You have to set realistic milestone for your game at this stage. You're not going to have a publisher who is saying, well, by this date, you have to provide me the alpha version of the game and the alpha build. But this stage date, you have to provide me the beta build. You have to set up those dates yourself. Don't work without having some milestone dates set up for you. One good thing is to do having these events and festivals set up as milestones. So you have to build a new build, a new iteration of the game each milestone. Having the same game on between one event and the other, and not having some extra content or feedback implemented into the game is a wasted opportunity. So you have to iterate fast. You have to time to polish after you have to receive the feedback. So remember, the longer you take to turn the game into income, the higher chance your game will not see the light. So as you are approaching the release of your game, you have to engage the media and streamers yourselves. It's best to take some time to do some artisan mailing, have one-on-one mailing, customize each mailing on the main characters. You want to have your game promotion into the main media and the main streamers. Of course, you're not going to get response from everybody. It's a small chance of them to respond, but as one article on a big media site like Kotaku on PC Gamer can provide a lot of players coming into your game. You have to provide concise info, screenshots, a great trailer for your game, provide them with keys or a build for them to try out the game, explain them why you are sending them that game and why you consider them that this game would be of interest to them. Having that personalized mail is different than having like an automatic email that they receive thousands each day. But there are also a lot of streamers that you want to really reach, and you're not going to send thousands of emails to thousands of streamers. So there are tools like Keymailer or Wooit. I personally used Keymailer for BalanCity, and it did well for that. But right now there's also another tool, Wooit, which we are trying out to see how it works. Those tools, you can use them to distribute keys massively to streamers. Each streamer has its own possibility to convert into players. For example, a 10,000 subscriber YouTuber, if it turns out to turn a couple of sales in exchange for a key, I think that's a good deal. This stage, of course, each sale counts. You don't want to really forget to support your players if they are facing any trouble. You're going to get some support emails and bad reviews make sure that you are there to respond to that and fix those problems. I put out a screenshot there from a Reddit post about the game, in which some random player commented that they were happy about the game, they really enjoyed the game, but they really enjoyed that the developer responded to them quickly when there was a problem, and they fixed the problem. And there I commented there, I replied that they brought he brought tears to my eyes, because really I really didn't remember about that user. I really wasn't thinking about this user is going to comment and really recommend the game because of having great support, but there it was. So you have to really be there. Of course, your game development process is going to suffer at this stage. You're going to be focusing on support and updates on your game. So it's going to, if you're going to start working on another project, you're going to be on half of your power on that project. Be careful with early access. You have to use that with caution. Sometimes early access can be a false start. For BalanCity, we got some bad reviews because we released an early access with bugs we could have really detected with a small closed beta. And those bugs turned into bad reviews, which had the rating of the game in a mixed position. We had it took some time for the rating of the game to go back up into a very positive rating, and that's something the player sees beforehand, the rating of the game on the reviews. So when you release a game, you will get hundreds of mails of fake streamers and fake media, asking for keys. You have to activate your own inner scam filter, and also beware, you will get mails from fake publishers and offering deals to distribute your games on platforms in exchange of some revenue share. And what they do, they just collect the hundreds of games and they publish it on all the stores there are, and they don't really do any marketing at all. They just hoard a lot of games, and it's not a really good deal selling your revenue share for that. So do a lot of background check beforehand. So after you publish the game, as I said, your development process is going to suffer. Make sure you plan a couple of updates for the first year of the game, at least. You have to keep an eye on the Steam special discount days like Halloween and holidays. Make yourself a calendar when your next week-long sale can be scheduled. Sales are a huge marketing tool for you as a self-publisher. While these sales provide discount sales, these sales provide the promotion, because Steam sends emails to the players that have the game on the wish list when the game enters a sale, and the game's shown in the current deals section. Updates also give the players a reason to finally take the decision to purchase the game. So it's a combination of both. Just if you combine an update, a big update of the game with a sale, you have the power of both tools pushing your game and players into buying your game. But you must start focusing on your next project. As I said, you're going to suffer on your development process. You have to, like a period between 1 year, between the first and the second year of your game, the game is going to go into auto mode. As I say, like it's going to get sales constantly on a steady rate, but really low sale figures, which point up and rise on when there's a sale and a discount. But that's the time you have for you to develop and start have already a new project. You have like a 1 year in which the game is going to do okay. But it depends on how the game really does on that first year. You can have a lot of sales, you can have mediocre sales, but depending on those funds, that's going to determine what you have available for you to develop the project. You may be able to keep working as an indie developer, solo developer, but if you want to really grow and form a studio, you must reinvest those earnings into developing a new project and investing into new human resources. And I will go that in the next slides. So as I said, you can have a good sales or not so good sales on your first game, but like moderate success for your game means survival for a small indie studio or a one person indie studio. It also helps break the ice at meetings and negotiations with possible partners, possible publishers. It proves that you've had the experience and know how the system works, having developed and go through all the process of the game. It's like in that quote for like says, it's not great, not terrible. Like you get that kind of looks when you say, I got this game, it's all these 1,000 copies. So, well, okay, it's not great, not terrible. Also, you have, there's a door opening effect having published a game. You can have access to grants and incubators. Be sure to check out in your local community for these opportunities. In our case, we got a grant from the government of Cordoba Film Commission to develop another project, which is Fata Morgana. We got the funds to fully develop that project. If we hadn't had BalanCity released before that project with over 20,000 sales by that time, we wouldn't have been able to apply to that grant, and we would have even been able to apply to a lower tier funding, and we wouldn't have enough money to really develop that project. So it really opened up our possibility to apply to those grants to have the BalanCity published. If your studio needs to grow because you have enough funds from your first game, be sure to keep the minimum viable structure possible. We had the chance at MeNic Games to expand the team thanks to the income from BalanCity and Fata Morgana, and move to an office. But that office, we got it thanks to being in a local business incubator. These incubators are a great opportunity for you to try as a small indie studio. They provide us with the office at a very low costs, and that let us focus all those funds onto hiring extra developers and artists for our current projects. So you have to keep the wheel rolling in that sense. You can follow the same procedure of self-publishing your next project, or with this experience earned, you can go and really face the publisher, and you're no longer a newcomer in the industry. You have something that proves what you are capable of doing. So some closing thoughts for you to take back home. Being an indie developer, I think it's a privilege. You have to check, if you have that privilege, try to make the most out of it, don't waste it. Many people would love to be working as game developers, and they cannot for various reasons. So make sure you make the most out of what you have in front of you. Don't let it go to waste. If things don't work as intended, always have a plan B. Be flexible, act fast. You have to understand where you're standing and understand the current conjuncture of where you are right now, on what part of the world, what economy you are into. We are in the developing economy with a lot of economic issues. You have a graph there which shows the cost of the dollar in Argentina in the last 5 years, and you can see it's gone up like 700%. That means that everything like hardware and inflation is really high here in Argentina, but the cost in dollars to run a studio, it's significantly lower than on a developing nation. So developed economy, sorry. So make sure you understand where you're standing and what are your opportunities and pros and cons of your industry and where you are right now. And finally, as a newcomer in the industry, you will need to show some credit. Credit is not economic credit, but professional credit. And one of the best ways to prove this is by doing things, completing games, and showing what you've done. Your games must speak for yourself. You have to act fast and capitalize your main investment as an indie developer, which is your time. Don't be too perfectionist on your first game. Just make sure it's out and it does okay. And I like to close with this phrase by John McQuill, also known as Saul Goodman, Jimmy McQuill. Perfection is the enemy of perfectly adequate. So that's it for this talk. I have a couple of questions. I would like to know a little bit how you handle working in parallel projects as being a solo developer. In fact, it's not possible. We are working right now on multiple projects because we are 6 persons in the team. And but at first, when I developed BalanCity, I was the main developer. I had some help from sound studio, a musician, and a sounding engineer who did that part of the game. But the 90% of the game was done by one person. That's me. So yeah, if you are a solo, you have to go on sequential. So make sure you really plan ahead, and really as soon as you finish developing the game, you set up the schedule to do updates on that game and start developing something new, or you start working alongside other people. You can't really grow that much if you are a solo developer. How do you manage your time between your day job and the job, and also have time for hobbies, family, rest, etc.? As I said, it's a stressful thing. It's I mentioned that having the stress of having multiple jobs, it's lower than having one job in which you have to base your whole income into. It's a lot of sacrifices that you make, of spending time with your family, and maybe having some free time and hobbies. That's that we can go in through another talk about work-life balance into that. Just make sure it doesn't consume you personally. There are days in which I stayed up until 4 a.m. in the morning completing BalanCity, and I had to wake up and be at my at classroom as a teacher at 8:50 in the morning. So it was hard, but it really paid off. Just make sure that as soon as you see that it's affecting your health or your personal relations, make sure that maybe it's not that important to spend that much time, but that's some of the things in which I say if you have to really act fast there, and maybe like rethink about the scope of your game, and maybe dedicate less time to your project in order to really get back your personal life, do it. It's a personal kind of thing, balance thing. In fact, I had an article published when I released BalanCity, in which I had an interview in which I mentioned this of having to balance the life with, as a family, as a teacher, and an indie developer. I will have to look through it, but yeah, it was a concept of balancing with BalanCity. So yeah, it's all about work-life balance. So I don't know if there are any further questions. If you would like to contact me, there's my email address on screen, and my Twitter handle. You can check out our site or our social media to see what our project are doing. I invite you to go to the Tinytopia Steam page and wishlist the game, because hopefully by the beginning of next year we'll be launching that game. So if there are no further questions, I really thank you for listening and being at this talk. Hope you learned something, and hopefully I can see what your games are about and what you did with what you learned. So thank you once again, and have a great game connection. So I have one question at the chat. Okay, no. Thanks. De nada. Bye bye.